My name is Eric, and today we're going to be deploying an S3 bucket via the AWS CDK. It's a pretty straightforward process. AWS has a really great link, just documentation to get you started on the very first app that you build. So a lot of what is done here takes from that. And it's a really nice way to construct classes or rather constructs is a term that they use that represent their services and being able to programmatically use them. So that's pretty nice. Now let's talk about the prerequisites. So you'll need to set up if you're going to use a local IDE, you'll have to set up a virtual environment and likely install the AWS CLI for sure, and then install the AWS CDK. That being said, no matter what option you do, you will need to have these permissions attached to the IAM role or user that you're going to need for this process. And the permissions are here: access, code catalyst full access, S3 full access, Cloud9 administrator, CloudFormation full access. The ones that specifically made a difference for me as I was troubleshooting were S3 full access and CloudFormation full access. For the rest, maybe your mileage may vary situation. Since I did it all on Cloud9, I definitely needed the Cloud9, and since I also did it on Code Catalyst, I also needed the Code Catalyst permissions. Now let's talk a little bit about Code Catalyst. So that's where I did the whole repository in. So when you make a Code Catalyst space, as soon as you open up a dev environment and all that stuff, you'll see a role called like Code Catalyst Workflow Development, whatever that name is. That is the role for that entire Code Catalyst setup that you have. And that's where I added my permissions to get it to work as I was troubleshooting. So just keep that in mind if you do end up using Code Catalyst. That role is already created on the IM Center, so just make sure that you add the necessary policies. All right. Now, given that we've gone over quite a bit of detail already, I have a lot of stuff written here as far as the steps that you need to make the app. And it really just takes after the documentation. So, make a directory, initialize the language that you want to work with. It can be anything you want. In my case, I did it in TypeScript, which is why I did npm run build. But you can do it in any other language, like Python, C++, C Sharp, and so on. So these steps I'm going to skip because they're pretty straightforward. Now, this is an area where I want to highlight Code Whisperer. So I wanted to do something simple. But the cool part about Code Whisperer, would be like the programming language the chat assistant for this type of thing. It was really helpful because I didn't want to do anything too complicated. And I already read some templates, so I knew roughly what I wanted to do, but it was good to see sort of the suggestions that this came up with. And it also helped me debug the encryption because I couldn't get it to run at some point. So here you'll see like the suggestions pop up as you start typing, or even without typing, you could just write the comments. Just remember that while that loads up, that you have to hit AWS Explorer and then make sure to activate Code Whisperer here at the bottom. All right, see? Now this is originally what it gave me, and I actually had issues. I couldn't get it to run as is. I think it was bucket encryption. This is what I was debugging with Code Whisperer earlier on. If it doesn't load quickly, I'll go find how I got it to work. Yep. But yeah, actually, this is how I got it from the Code Whisperer process. I looked at a few of the debugging, sorry, at a few of the encryption options, and that's how I got it to work. And then the rest of the other pieces that were about getting the remover policy that came from the documentation. and demo video bucket. This is missing a parentheses and a semicolon. Parentheses, a semicolon. I think I'm missing one more bracket. Yep. So I already done this project before, just making sure that I had all the right syntax. I think I'm missing a new. And oh, it needs to be alongside. The indentation needs to be alongside the constructor. So let's just move this a bit up. And now that that's saved, now we follow along with the README, CDK synth, and then CDK deploy. All right, came back for a second. Went out and came back for a second. I wanted to debug this. And it was basically a naming issue where this D was a lowercase d when it needed to be an uppercase D. Now npm run build has no issues. So I'll let that keep running, and now we can just jump straight into the CDK synth. Don't be surprised if you also get this error for the CDK bootstrap, because then you can just go straight into fixing it then and there. CDK bootstrap. Yeah, it's an assertion. This is something with an issue with the AWS documentation where it's sort of an assertion that checks if something existed or not. Otherwise, everything is completely fine. It's not so much that you had an error. So then you just run synth again. And after synth, we have deploy, which is the final step of the pipeline. Oh, we still keep getting the assertion error. Let me debug that for a sec. Hello. I came back and I actually figured out what it was. So you're going to get that bootstrap error a lot because it's an issue. It's a well-documented issue on GitHub that it's pretty much a user interface error shown here. And your code is fine. Like you don't have to remove anything. So I do CDK synth and I'm going to get that weird error. But then as soon as I did CDK deploy, everything was as happy as it could be. So we're done now. I'm going to hit yes. So this is what you see when you're deploying. It's created a CloudFormation change set. So now in a very short while, we're going to see like the output of that. It's almost done. I'll check back in as soon as it's done in case if it takes a while. Yes, definitely took a bit, but it's finally done. Synthesis and deployment is complete. All right, now how do you know if your app is all set and ready to go? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to CloudFormation. And then when you look at your stacks, you look at the one that we just created. So I created the demo video CDK stats. It's already completed. So if you look at resources, there's the demo video bucket we were talking about. And it's been completed. Thank you so much for watching. This has been deploying an S3 bucket on via AWS CDK.